Just gets worse and worse for the Ginger Whinger and Princess Pinocchio, doesn't it? Peppa Pig is officially more successful than Harry and Meghan. On Netflix, The Duke and Duchess's flop was only the 211th most viewed programme behind Peppa Pig and Paw Patrol. To discuss this, I'm joined by host of the To Die For podcast, Kinsey Schofield, and the royal editor, Robert Jobson. Robert, very good to see you. Thanks very much indeed for coming in. Kinsey, who would have thought that now not only has the Hollywood Reporter sort of poured a ton of horrible stuff all over them and called them the losers of the year. Even the Netflix success that we thought they had was kind of not really a success either.
Correct. I think that this is really going to hit Harry and Meghan because Netflix has typically kept their numbers secret. However, they did market this particular documentary as a success for the Netflix brand. And it created new opportunities elsewhere for Harry and Meghan. Just the line that Netflix gave that this was the most successful docuseries ever, very vague on their numbers. But to see that it ranked below 200 in Netflix all around streaming numbers, I think that it's going to hit Harry and Meghan pretty hard for future opportunities.
Well, I think so. And Robert, we saw yesterday that the charity, Archewell, is pretty much falling down around its knees as well. They've lost something like $9 million $9 million in donations. You know, the success story that they were sort of touting seems to be made of sand, isn't it, or built on sand?
Well, it's all done with mirrors,
yeah.
It seems to me. I mean, the reality is the Netflix documentary did well in terms of the publicity it created.
Right.
Because the media lapped it up. We all lapped it up.
Yeah.
We got loads of it. But in terms of the numbers, then clearly he didn't do that well. But as for their charity, I think that really they should sort of hang their heads in shame, really. I mean, the fact is a lot of money has been put into that charity and we don't really know what they do. All we know is they collected awards, but what for?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm no particular axe to grind against them if they're doing great, good causes.
Sure.
And great, giving money to people that need it. But it just doesn't seem to be the case. It seems to be that the charities, is not really fit for scrutiny.
No. I mean, it pays a lot of people quite a lot of money. About 5 people obviously earn in excess of 6 figures each.
Nice.
They claim that, Kinsey, I'm going to put this one to you, they claim that they've helped out some Nigerian young women with some issues around menstruation. It's all very small potatoes, considering the fact that somebody gave them about $11 million. You know, what have they done with it all?
Well, I think if we're going to talk about menstruation, that has to be Jobson's question, if we're being honest.
I can't go there. Lindsay, you deal with that one. It's just not going to help me.
Well, I think that what we've noticed with Archewell is that they insert themselves in projects that are already happening, and initiatives that are already in the pipeline. Archewell jumps in and says, hey, we're Harry and Meghan. We can increase the publicity for this initiative if you let us just tack on. What's surprising to me is they did, counteract this story. They wanted TMZ here in the States to say that this story was garbage. And they said that they have big time cash stashed away at Archewell, that they're fine, that they're not a corporation, so the story is irrelevant. Well, if you've got big time cash stashed away, I mean, why are you hoarding money? Your whole objective is to be contributing money to meaningful initiatives. What's the point of hoarding it?
Yeah.
Well, I didn't think charities could do that.
Yeah, right.
I thought
apparently in America they can.
Well, I don't think you should be hoarding money. I mean, money, the bottom line is charity is for charity. You're supposed to, with that money that's in their bank could be helping those women in Nigeria.
Yeah, well, it could be. And that's the other thing, is that when I was reading the story of the tax return yesterday, thought to myself, I wonder if some of these big donations that have been made into the charity have actually come from them. Because if you're running a charity and you haven't got many donations, you go, well, we got a few quid. Let's put a couple of million in. It'll look like somebody's put some money in. I'm not saying that that's what's happened, but it's not inconceivable that might have happened, is it?
Maybe it's coming from his dad, who knows?
Yeah, well, who knows? A silent partner. But, I mean, that's the other thing. We've also seen stories today, Robert, about Prince Harry when he was younger, which you'll know from older.
As I'm older.
As you're older. But, I mean, when you've been follling Harry around for a long time, and this is even before the days of Vegas.
Not following him around.
Well, not following him around.
Right.
But writing about him, and, we were all following him around. I mean, he would go to nightclubs, people would know where he went.
I've never been in a nightclub where he was.
OK. Well, he's been in a lot of nightclubs, and we've got people talking about him. Paddy McGuinness has been saying he was at a wild party with him. He was ripping off a poster off the wall saying doesn't want to have the Queen see what he's doing. The Duke of Beaufort, I think, he's written a book saying he literally had to stop him throwing young women into a pool. I'm not saying he shouldn't have been doing any of that stuff, but he's a very different character now, isn't he?
Well, we don't really know. I mean, it wasn't that long ago he was in LA, in Las Vegas, playing strip billiards.
Yeah.
But, I mean, all I would say in that respect is a lot of people do a lot of things when they're young, and you should forgive them a little bit. But when they start preaching when they're older about what we should all behave like, I think then people have got a right to say, well, why should we listen to you, mate? You were a bit of a, well, you were certainly a rebel. You were out there, and caused his, I know for a fact, caused some of his bodyguards a bit of a headache.
Yes, but of course now what he says is that Meghan has managed to teach him. Of course, that Kinsey, that was all part of his, unfortunate upbringing and his unfortunate mental health problems. He was lashing out and taking all sorts of substances and drinking too much because he was unhappy.
Well, if you read Spare, it sounds like he's just transitioned from alcohol to to smoke in a bowl, if we're being honest, whatever mushrooms are available. Yeah. And they're in therapy, kumbaya. But no, I haven't seen Harry in the last few years. What I see is a very resentful, vengeful, unhappy individual that spends more time in court than he obviously spends working for Archewell, which the documents say he works 1 day a week for Archewell.
Right. Well, that maybe one day too many. And how seriously is it going to affect them, this business with the Hollywood Reporter? Because, you and I have spoken many times about the way they're perceived by the sort of glitterati in America, and it looks as though they're running out of road, doesn't it?
These are two people that can't commit to the long game. We saw that when they both quit the royal family. We saw that with Spotify. There were several options Meghan could have taken after they ended their relationship. She could have continued to podcast, but with subscriptions, she could have found sponsors and could continue to podcast. They don't commit to the long game. And I think that anybody that looks to work with them in the future needs to be hesitant of that.
And that looks like the way it is, Robert, doesn't it?
I think that's a really good point. I mean, I think that actually some of the podcasts grew on me.
Yeah.
Of Meghan's, particularly, I thought they were quite good in the end. Right. And I don't know why she stopped.
Are you sure that's not some kind of Stockholm syndrome you're suffering from?
I had to listen to them.
Because I haven't listened to them.
Mike, I had to listen to them.
Yeah, I know you had to.
And actually, maybe that.
Yeah, it could be, because I studiously...
But they weren't bad at the end.
I studiously did not listen to them. I listened to clips from them. We played them out on shows. Similarly, I didn't watch the Netflix documentary series. I couldn't bring myself...
I had to, mate.
I did watch the curtsying thing, though, which I've never really forgiven them for, because I thought that was horrific.
No, that was appalling.
It was just dreadful.
Yeah.
And this kind of smugness that they portray.
I think even Harry thought that was appalling.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you look back on all sorts of things. I look back on the Oprah interview and see Harry looking appalled when she brings up the racism thing.
But why doesn't he do something about it?
Because he's whipped, isn't he, for want of a better word?
It's a dangerous route to go down.
Well, I think
you might be right.
He is. I mean, I could say that to Kinsey. I mean, that's not an offensive thing to say. I mean, he's clearly, in the grip of his wife, isn't he?
I do think that he's wholeheartedly in love and so lonely. He has no other options anymore. He's lost a significant amount of friends. He's lost his family. So he's got to, play his cards right. He doesn't want to make the wife mad.
Right. And are we ever going to see the kids? I mean, it seems to me like we've never really seen the kids at all. I mean, I'm not saying he shouldn't protect them from whatever.
I suppose they should be protected to a degree because they will become the focus of attention later on in the teen years. There's no doubt about that. I don't know. I don't think it's anything to do with the kids. I feel sorry for the kids, actually, because they're being wrapped up in this whole thing. But I think the Harry and Meghan saga has reached... the wheels have come off.
Yeah, they really have. And Omid Scobie's done them no favours, has he?
I mean, Omid.
So, Omid who? I mean,
he hasn't done anybody. He thought he'd done himself a lot of favours until he lied.
Well, do you know what's funny? As you were saying, he's now rewritten his book from the one he wrote. The original book was rewritten from the one that you wrote, right? Or from various other people wrote.
Look, I mean, it's very hard to write a book. I mean, it's hard to read a book sometimes, but especially when it's spare or whatever. But I think writing a book's difficult, but I think in this particular juncture... I think that the book didn't do anybody any favours. I think the name was spiteful, Endgame, even though he tried to justify it. It hasn't done that well. I don't think it will do that well. I think people, when when the lie came out about the so-called racist
Yes.
two, and it emerged that he hadn't told the complete truth or whose truth or whatever, I think that then you lose a little bit of traction.
Yeah, I think so. And Sophie Wessex was sort of dragged into it latterly towards the end as well. And Kinsey, I mean, I don't know how, again, the American public is reacting, but I was on the East Coast not very long ago, and the people I spoke to there about the whole royal scenario were talking as though Harry and Meghan are not really in the royal family anymore. They were talking about Kate, they were talking about William, they were talking about King Charles, the coronation, still talking about the Queen. They didn't really mention Harry and Meghan at all, the people I spoke to.
Yeah, I think you're right. You know, in the States, Harry and Meghan are seen as dramatic, too much information, a bit toxic and vindictive. And it's Harry that people are interested in, not Meghan. Meghan married the prince, you know, and I think that that's where they need to have some sort of reality check. People are interested in Harry. But when you talk about Omid and Sophie, I think that Sophie did reach out, try to help Meghan. The Queen offered multiple people to help Meghan navigate the world. I think Meghan was very resentful that she felt rejected by Catherine. She wanted Catherine's attention and Catherine's mentorship. And Catherine is literally a human jungle gym with babies crawling all over her constantly, and just didn't have it in her to do that.
But why should she?
Yeah. Well, exactly right. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, the whole thing has been a complete disaster from minute one. And whoever said to Harry at some point or other, "Are you sure about this?"
I mean, I know Sophie fairly well, and this business on, you know, that she didn't reach out, it's just not true. The Queen asked her to. She was, the late Queen asked her to, and she offered herself, and she was there to do it. Maybe, you know, Meghan didn't think she was up the hierarchy enough. I don't know.
Obviously, that's
the bottom line is Sophie would have been a perfect person to help her, guide her through, because she's a great girl. You know, she helped. You know, she's helped me with the journalist charity London Press Ball. She's always been out there to help people, and she's a good person. So why Meghan rejected her, I've no idea.
I know, absolutely ridiculous. Anyway, thank you to both of you. Kinsey, I'm sure we'll see you again soon. Keep your eyes open for, you know, any sort of tap being sold at knockdown prices by Netflix or Spotify or anything like that. Robert Jobson, thank you very much indeed.